Hi everyone, welcome back to Misinformation in Science and Society, here to listen, not to judge. I'm your host Annie, and today with us we have Saji Prelis. All right, so welcome. Could you please introduce yourself a little bit and what you do?
Sure. My name is Saji Prelis. I work for an international organization called Search for Common Ground, which is one of the largest and oldest peacebuilding organizations. I have the privilege of directing our children and youth programs globally. And I also co-chair the Global Coalition on Youth Peace and Security that shapes the global youth peace and security agenda internationally.
Mm-hmm. So, um, in your experience with peace building and conflict resolution, how was misinformation how has misinformation affected these processes, and what strategies have you employed to counter it?
Sure, good question. I think misinformation and disinformation and stuff is been around throughout history, for thousands of years. As long as humans have walked on the planet,
Mm-hmm.
there has been information, there has been misinformation, and rumors and stuff that have happened.
Mm-hmm.
It is part of the human story. But I think what has happened lately is that it is happening at a much faster speed and reaching many more people compared to the past, where the information took some time to get to people, whereas now it's happening at much faster speeds, and society structures are not very well equipped to manage that speed very well. So this is one of the reasons why it has become more scary today than in the past. Um, the other part of this, to answer your question about why this is so important, is I think because there's, I guess, the, the element of truth is being
Mm-hmm.
challenged. And there are to me, there are three different forms of truth. One is at a personal level, right? We we understand truth to be something very dear to us. But when it comes to lies, we have to remember the lie at a human level. If it's a truth, we don't have to remember the truth, it comes naturally, right? If you lie, you have to remember that lie. And the more you give life to the lie, you have to keep remembering the morphing of that lie.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, but that's at a personal level. At a societal level, there's a universal set of truths codified into law. And at the same time, there are some spiritual truths that are out there as well that can be argued as universal as well. But people tend to twist some of these things that make it much more difficult to manage. And this is where the speed comes into play. So, and the work we do is at a societal level because we know that conflicts and rumors happen at a societal level. So
Mm-hmm.
we use radio and television and other forms of communication tools to reach a mass audience, to understand how rumors can be managed better.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes rumors are misinformation. Sometimes they are not told the whole truth, but enough of a truth that it can make people believe in something. Especially when it comes to human relationships, where life and death is on the line. Very easy to get rumors to lead to people getting killed.
Mm-hmm.
Very easy to spread a rumor that in one church or a mosque there's weapons being collected. And when people already don't trust each other, it's very easy for that to be turned into a violent activity. But the truth is, there might not be any weapons in that church or mosque or temple.
Yeah.
But that's where the human factor comes in. And so when you think about misinformation, we forget the people behind it. And the human side is as important as the truth or the misinformation itself. So this is where Search for Common Ground and several other organizations work on rumor management, where we have in communities people who actually are, so to say, ambassadors so to say, at the community level, keeping a pulse of what's happening on a day-to-day basis, online and in other offline community spaces, to understand what's going on and to see if there are rumors that are spreading, that are getting popular. They actually go and verify those rumors, see if it's true. So, for example, if the rumor is that a place of worship is collecting arms, you know, they actually go and talk to the religious leader. They talk to community members to understand the full picture, and then very quickly they debunk these rumors by doing it on the radio in traffic time when people are stuck on the road listening to the radio on traffic. This is where they remember. Or now we're using social media, whether it's on Twitter or other forms. So that these are ways that we can really quickly squelch it. But at a human level, everyday people don't have the bandwidth that institutions have. So this is why there's always things that fall through the cracks and go farther, because misinformation machines have paid people to create these misinformation campaigns. So that's that at a societal level, right? And there's another part of this is that oftentimes people who propagate these misinformation campaigns or hateful campaigns, they are subsidized, they are financed by a group of people that oftentimes are much more, spend a lot more money on the equipment to make it reach mass audiences much faster. So it's very difficult to keep up with the speed at which things take place. So for everyday people, we struggle with it. But keeping in mind, this is where regulations can come in to actually help in this. So just another way to answer your question and provide more thought to it, Annie.
Yeah. So, how can, I guess, educators and like schools play a part in like raising awareness and improving like media literacy skills among like students to combat misinformation on a more like personal level? Yeah.
Yeah, good question again. I think, you know, often we think that the answer lies in education. But if you understand what does that really mean, education, most learning happens, 80% sometimes young people learn not in classrooms, in outside the classrooms, with your friends, with your community members, whether it's in the playgrounds or online or others, right? Then the other part is where people learning in a formal education settings. We need to think broadly about the education spectrum of how people learn and make sure education happens in this in at a family level and in a classroom level. Education happens in playgrounds and community marketplaces and online spaces. And if you think about it, the ecosystem approach, then what are the ingredients that give people, young people, the tools and the skills and the wisdom to act when things sound suspicious? As soon as suspicion happens is where people become open to misinformation, open to new information that doesn't just line up with them. So then there comes to human level, how do we make sure we have the right tools to respond when things like that happen? I've seen around the world that the decision points we face as people to do good or evil are not oceans and oceans apart. The decision points to do good or evil actually are very close together. So this is where the tools come in. This is where the upbringing comes in. This is where the culture and traditions come in. So here it's not I'm not proposing that they take a class in rumor management or misinformation management. That's an intellectual exercise. What I'm suggesting is that we need to think much broader than that. We need to think of how do we awaken our inner consciousness to understand how to manage the barrage of information we're getting and not let our ego drive us, not let our egos of, oh, I want to be proudful and this person is attacking my pride, or this person is actually affecting my sense of importance, self-importance, or this goes against my values. But who is this person attacking, me or something else? So if we need to understand how to manage that in a way that enables us to awaken our consciousness to react to the barrage of information. So within education spaces that are, broadly speaking, in and outside the classrooms, we need to start awakening people's consciousness. One good thing, the brighter side of this, is that young people growing up are becoming more and more self-awakened to a great extent, more so than the previous generations itself. So they are becoming more open, but that doesn't mean that they have all the answers. This is where adults come into play to make sure that they're not imprisoned because they have different ideas as young people, but their ideas are shaped and strengthened because they have some wisdom. So this is where these ageist ideas of the older generations need to be held back and brought to bear, where yes, older generations see young people with knowledge and wisdom. So again, when you think about learning and education, there's learning that can be done across young people to young people and across at an intergenerational level too, where older generation can learn from young people and young people can learn from older generations. Right? I think that's the way of really rooting out the roots of our ability to react to information that may not complement my own beliefs. Right? And that's a different form of an exercise than an intellectual exercise, like taking a class or saying these are the 5 tips of misinformation. Those are intellectual things. Those are very quick and easy to do. But when it comes to the decision points of actually acting, that requires a much more deeper sense of understanding of who we are in the world and how we see ourselves, and make sure that we don't give in to our egos and respond at a knee-jerk level. You know, I'll share this. I think because what I was saying, when young people have some wisdom, I think they are realizing generally that the world they are inheriting is only actually creating more control of themselves, and the system that they are inheriting is fundamentally broken. And they're trying to free themselves and other generations from the system. The system that is broken is actually a system that is keeping people rich, keeping a few people powerful, and everybody else controlled and manipulated. So that system is what people are trying to uproot. And part of that system is rooted in capitalism. Part of that rooted in few people making money on behalf of others. Here is where the system needs to, and people are realizing that, but they don't have the answers for how to fix it. But the awakening is happening. I think that's why I think it's also kind of hopeful also to see. But we need to keep amplifying and creating that space for young people, it's wisdom to come alive, not control it by saying you don't know enough. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. So, can you share some successful initiatives or like projects that have like effectively tackled misinformation in the context of like building and like conflict resolution?
Yeah. So, for example, there are lots of projects that we've done around the world. In the past, where the internet penetration is not so high, there's an example I gave where people were using radio, for example, to manage rumors. That's why I gave the example of the rumor is that a place of worship is collecting arms. How do you manage those rumors so that they don't spread to become violent? And at the same time, in an internet age, in urban areas where internet penetration is high, places like Sri Lanka in urban settings, we were working with a program in Sri Lanka called Cyber Guardians, where they were able to actually understand how rumors were spreading online, especially using Facebook groups and others, and be able to manage them and manage those rumors quickly and respond to those rumors quickly. It actually led to when a suicide attack happened at a church, and one group was being targeted, one religious group was being targeted, Muslim groups were targeted. Young people from around the area were actually quickly able to quelch rumors and force people who are actually spreading false information and rumors to say, I did this. I admit I didn't have all the information at hand when I, said certain things, and I'm sorry for it, and all that. So the ingredients what I'm trying to share with this example from Sri Lanka is that nobody is perfect. We all are imperfect humans in a way, right? And it gives people an opportunity to correct their mistake. If they are targeted as a bad, evil person, the only thing they're going to do is make them create a stronger shell around them so they can buffer the hate coming at them.
Mm-hmm.
So even if somebody is sending bad information that is leading to violent activity, we need to give them the chance to change course and correct course and not vilify them for being evil. Because if you're trying to stop hate speech, we can't be hateful to the other who is creating the hate speech also. You have to see the human side of the people and recognize the pain or the fear that they might be going through as a human being and enable them to come back and course correct as opposed to vilify them through more hate. Because what happens with more hate is that it creates more hate, right? And how do we change it? And that's a human level. This goes back to the earlier comment. How do we as humans change the course of how we engage with each other? So these are two examples of how we have done it, and by humanizing the other, recognizing the pain or the fear in the other, we're able to humanize and then enable them to take a leadership role in changing what the mistake that they have made. And that's something I think we don't do enough of. I think as humans we only focus on one thing, but doing one thing is not the answer to the broader problem. And I think this is where the human relationships come into play.
Yeah. So I'm looking for what advice would you give to like young people? I know you touched on this earlier, saying how like young people have like wisdom. Specific advice would you give to young people who want to become more involved in the in addressing the issue of like misinformation as well as promoting like accurate information?
So there is one important quote I want to share. I think a Native American leader, chief who made that. The quote, I think something reads like, angry people want you to see how powerful they are. And loving people want you to see how powerful you are. And that what that means is, when you are angry, you perpetuate more hate and misinformation. And the reason they are doing that is to show how powerful they are, how strong they are. And it's an egoist response to it. But when you unpack that and see how loving people want you to see how powerful you are, the other, not the I, but us, then that's an important tool to unpack. And to me, that's really powerful because around the world, we see young people as people who care about not themselves only, but everybody. Their leadership model is very horizontal. They care, and outsiders looking in think the leadership model of young people is leaderless. But honestly, it's actually leaderful because it cares about everybody and wants everyone's voices to be heard. So I think in a world young people are inheriting, we need to start. If you think about how young people are rising to the challenges they are inheriting and still thinking about the other and working together across those dividing lines, my advice is to keep believing in that and keep working on it. Second is to always challenge the system. Do not accept a system or inherit a system that is fundamentally broken and accept it as it is. See it for what it is, change it. Don't just criticize it, but work to changing it with more and more people. The third is to recognize that the purpose of systems that exist is to keep people robotic, keep people enslaved, keep people hypnotized
Mm,
to the shiny objects of the things. And that's the form of control. And as young people are seeing the fallacy of that system, keep seeing it, show more people like that, the system are like that, and that's the way to self-liberate and liberate the youth, young people of the world also. And
mhm,
that's in the hands of people like you and what you're trying to do through your channels of communication and to work in other people. My advice is more people should be following in your footsteps and others to keep awakening people's hearts and minds to the fallacies of our systems and
mhm,
continue to uplift the people who are doing good, the other young people who are doing good, shine the light on others, so to say. The last point I will say is, if when you come in, when young people are stepping into leadership roles, the power in your leadership comes not from what you just accomplished, but more power people who are admiring and following you. I'm not talking followers on TikTok and that's neither here or there. Today and tomorrow that changes. I'm talking about people who really serve other people's needs. Then you need to keep opening, giving keys to other people behind you to keep opening the doors themselves, empowering others. So
mhm,
it's kind of like saying, you know, uh, that quote, like, be the change you want to be. See, but here you want to make sure you keep the door open so others also go through. Don't just think for yourself and keep the selfish room for yourself, but keep the doors open so more people come in, so you can continue to open more doors. And I think that pay it forward concept, I think, is so critical.
mhm,
When the world is getting uglier, we actually continue to want to keep opening it, pay it forward, not keep it for ourselves. That's, I think, an inherent wisdom in young people. I don't want young people to forget that.
mm. Yeah. Um, so looking towards the future, I guess, what steps can we take as like I guess like society, I guess, to create like a more like well-informed and like scientifically like literate society that's like less susceptible to misinformation?
Sure, a really good question again. I think as a society, your question is, how do we arm ourselves with the right tools,
Mm,
right, to make sure that we are prepared for dealing with the challenges of misinformation and disinformation and others in the coming years? Is that correct?
mm-hmm,
Right. So the one is to continue to highlight how young people are doing good in the world. Two is making sure they have the other people have the tools to not be afraid to embrace their conscious attitudes. Three is making sure that when rumors are spreading, the human side doesn't get targeted. The human behind the spreading of the misinformation is not dehumanized. Because at the end of the day, tools are available to provide good and evil things, right? It's how we as humans understand the fear of the other who might be an enemy and see
mm-hmm,
the human side of it and enable them to course correct is really, really critical. To me, that's the real transformation. If you can turn your enemy into your friend, if you can change someone who you don't agree with, not to convert them, but to see the common humanity in each other.
mm-hmm,
That's that's a real transformation, and I think that's where you will want to head towards, right? So that requires a lot more work. It's harder work, more dangerous work, but yet more rewarding work. You know, and the other thing is, do not give up. Not just say, I little me can't do everything in the world. The problems are bigger than me, right? But I've seen with my own eyes that young people just don't believe in it. They have that in their minds, but in their hearts they want to do something. And the way you can bring that out for them to continue to work from the heart is by continuing to amplify other young people who are doing good. So
Mhm.
someone who is listening to your YouTube channel or a radio station or uh, online somewhere listening, a young woman who is listening to another young woman's work, she feels like she could change the world too. You know, her struggles are big, but if somebody else is doing it, then why can't she? It gives her invisible power. I think that's really the power of the importance of amplifying good actions of people. What it does is it not only popularizes one person who's doing good, but it sends a set of energy and messages out to the silent majority of young women and men and sexual gender minorities to feel like my pain is not so unique as much as somebody else's, and I can empathize and be able to come out of my shyness or come out of the situation I'm in to do something about it. So that's also the power. So that's why it's important to amplify young people's good work and make it look like it's not an adult doing it. It's a young person doing it on behalf of our young person serving the needs of others. So when we communicate, I think we shouldn't unbrand the youthfulness. We need to really brand the youthfulness. It's a sense of identity and a sense of belonging. And being young is a unique power, superpower that we shouldn't underestimate.
Mhm. Yeah. All right. Those are all the questions I had prepared. Is there anything else you would like to cover?
Not to cover as much as ask you, do you have any reactions or thoughts to what I've shared? And what does that feel? Does it resonate with you?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um I think a lot of the things you like talked about I could like relate to, and other things I could definitely like see like around me, and some other things I just like learned like they were just like brand new to me, like brand new like
Mhm.
information. And um yeah, and it was really inspiring, and your work has been really inspiring, like seeing like what you do, and like uh hearing you talk about like uh some of that, and like misinformation, and how like what everyone can do. I think yeah, it was really inspiring and empowering. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. Well, I don't have much more to say. I think only thing I might want to say, I could say, I think is, you know, this is I think relevant for this conversation, is we tend to really embrace technology, and the young generation is growing up in a technological world. They are
Hmm.
awakening themselves to embrace technology wholeheartedly. But we need to realize 1,000 years ago, there was technology as powerful as today's technology.
Mm,
At the time, that was the most powerful thing. A bow and arrow or a gun was very powerful, and it was used to do certain things. Today, WhatsApp or TikTok is another tool, very similar to the time of the past for a certain purpose,
hmm.
right? So when you and the point here is we cannot forget the human side, the soul side of these tools that are out there.
Mm,
We can all these tools are here today and they will be gone tomorrow. What we have consistent is each other, right? Again, look, Facebook was the big deal then, but now Facebook is not so big deal to a great extent, right? Among younger populations.
hmm.
TikTok may be today, but in a few years, TikTok may not be the most popular thing that everyone is using at a younger age, right? So, but what is consistent? The human side, the younger generation using the different tools and tools of the time to amplify their voice.
Mm,
So that's where I think it's really important to not forget the human and put a tool, an artificial tool in front of the human.
mm,
That's the beginning of this, and that's the beginning of our end. And I think we need to be very conscious of that. And always remember to keep the human side of all these things front and center, as opposed to give our power to some technology that's going to be the magic solution for us. The technology is never going to be a magic solution. We are the solution to it, and we need to keep that at the heart. So I just
Mhm.
want to share that because I feel with ChatGPT and other technologies coming in rapid format, we think that that's the solution for everything. And it is not. It is us who are going to be there. Technologies come and go, and we cannot forget that.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that. And
Okay?
thank you again for this opportunity and for your time,
You're
um,
welcome.
your
All
detailed.
the best. And let me know if it comes out. I'd love to see it and all that.
Yeah, of course.
And thank you for the
Absolutely.
work you do.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Okay? Take care. Bye bye. All the best. Have a good weekend.
You too.